Turok listened to Jerimo the Natterer. His plans were in motion, he just needed to see it through. His little army was ready to move on Sigil as soon as the Ring-Givers could make their way in, and word was coming, they were. I nodded and knew what I had to do. The Palace of the Jester, or the Court of the Pain, covering as much ground as the Great Bazaar, the Foundry, and the Hive put together. The Palace of the Jester is a neutral gathering ground for the rich and powerful. Too bad there aren't enough of them to fill its empty halls. A quick and daring Burke could nick enough jink from these high-ups to live a lifetime of comfort and ease. In fact, the palace is a ghostly place, all echoing corridors and dead-end staircases. No easy way to approach a mart and make off with the goods. Only the Debus seem completely at home in it, and even they have been seen throwing nervous glances over their shoulders from time to time. Though the courtiers, Factals, and other visitors might not agree, the real power of the palace is the ladies' jester, Jerimo the Natterer. Unlike his silent mistress, Jerimo never shuts his babbling bone box. He'll collar primes, Eladrin, anyone who'll listen. Despite his jabbering, the Natterer is very much a power of Sigil's government. His real strength comes from his control of the puppet strings of the city, its civil service, and its bureaucracy. He also has an uncanny ability to predict where portals will appear, a knack that has never been explained. All of Jerimo's magical items were forged in Sigil itself. The Sword of Darkness is a unique magical item that temporarily extinguishes all magical and non-magical light within 60 feet of the drawn blade. The lights return when the sword leaves the area. Recent rumors claim that the palace currently suffers from a huge infestation of cranium rats, which has driven away the cross-trade that usually flourishes here like razor vine in the refuse heap. Forgers, fixers, and fences have all removed themselves and sworn not to return until the rats are destroyed utterly. So far, no one has seen the Dabus preparing for a life as exterminators, so perhaps the Jester has someone else in mind for the job. I headed over to the prison. There, at one of the drinking establishments just outside, I sat down with my contact, slid over a few coins, and told him his orders. He hurried off. I got up to make one more stop. The Mercy Killer's headquarters looks like everything a Burke fears, a massive grim stone and spikes, surrounded by broad avenues. Sometimes a cutter will hear a faint wail from within, and when he does, he stops walking. There's some things Assad just don't want to know about. The one good thing about the nearby quarter is street crimes are virtually non-existent. There's not a cross-trading body around who'll go ply his skills under the very noses of the Mercy Killers. There's too many rumors of them deciding they can arrest, try, and punish a Burke themselves, especially if their headquarters is close and convenient. Rigidly honest folk who've got the money and no vices to all set their cases in the blocks around the prison. The businesses around the prison seem as gray and humorless as the cage itself. The taverns are quiet, well-ordered places where nobody makes trouble, as only a barmy will attract the attention of the Mercy Killer squad drinking at the next table. The inns are Spartan with no hint of temptations that some of the other establishments in Sigil offer. The markets are scrumptiously honest, so the prices here are lower and the quality better than just about anywhere else. I walked into the Fortune's Wheel and waited. My second contact came in. He didn't say anything directly to me. Ordered a dark liquor. That was all I needed to know. I got up, put down 2 gold coins, and headed out. The Fortune's Wheel is a tavern and inn where the high and mighty come to engage. The wheel also attracts a large proportion of fakes and sharpers, so a basher and a heavy purse would do well to consider bringing along a few bloods as guards and keep his money out of the hands of the faded or the fiends, who also make their fortune in the streets just outside the wheel. The common room is called the Dragon Bar. The Dragon Bar is named for an enormous carved dragon's head that arches over the bar's mirror and descends to the corner of the bar itself, where the head entertains the wheel's patrons with tales of its life on the prime. Most bashers who care guess that some necromantic spell controls the thing. Rumor claims the dragon enforces peace in the wheel whenever a guest gets too boisterous. Those guests are generally invited to leave and never return. If the threat fails, they're enveloped in a cloud of blackness, the dragon's breath. Other rumors claim that the dragon is in fact the owner, and its serpent form is an illusion. In fact, so the story goes, the entire beast perches just below the balcony for it to enjoy the company of powerful creatures, where its hoard lies, and rumors do not say. The other less exclusive public chambers of the wheel are the Dyson Cup, their bear baiting room, and and the fortune wheel itself. The wheel began as an iron rim of an enormous cartwheel, decorated with nails and gilded with payoffs right on the weathered iron. The whole wheel is mounted vertically and spun until the clicking strip of boiled leather brings it to a stop, indicating a square between two of the nails. Bets placed on the wooden table, then paid off. The odds are terrible, but a unique gold square pays 1,000 to 1, so there's always a prime at the table, desperately trying for a long shot. The wheel made the tavern's reputation and gave it its name. The room has a certain nostalgia, but not only the clueless, but those with more money than sense try to win the golden square. The gambler's wheel takes far more than it returns to the crowd, and only the promise of a magical item payoff, set on a tiny half space between the extra clickers, keeps the regulars coming back. The prize has changed each fortnight, and the past few winners have walked off with a mage's prize, magical rings, wands, and potions. Despite this exception, the wheel rarely pays off, just often enough to keep the credulous coming back for more. A minimum 10 gold piece bet is required to try the mage's prize. The Dice and Cup is the most dangerous of the tavern's establishments. Some of the rich powerful are very poor losers, and the patrons of the Dice and Cup play as much against one another as against the house. Losing huge sums gives up a high-up gambler as much status as winning huge sums, perhaps even more. After all, anyone can win big, but few can afford to lose big. Though, the money is not very important to the players except the way to keep score. Any riffraff who try to take their cut from the Bloods are in for a big surprise. An invisible mage, 2 gargoyles, lurk in the shadows, always watching such attempts to bop the customers. The house favorite is the albino musician, Estrella, a half-elf, a stunning pale-skinned bard with lustrous silver hair, who claims to hail from Asgard. In fact, Estrella's claims are true, though she was exiled from there, and she spies for the fated while here. Plots are always thick at the Fortune's Wheel, but everybody's looking for the chronosphere of Lagos, a device that makes its owner immortal while making him undead. That very high up wants to illuminate the identity of Licork, the Githyanki princess searching for her exiled mother who escaped the death at the hands of the Githyanki lich goddess. This ain't a tale for family piety. The princess seeks her mother's head to prove her loyalty to the lich goddess and gain command of the astral fortress. The wheel's an old building that leans on its neighbors, and its creaking floors are layered with thick carpets to muffle the creaks and groans. A second floor passageway connects the wheel to Azure Iris, a tiny inn run by the high-ups who have drunk a bit more than they should have and decided to retire for the night in safety. Others use the Iris as a discreet locale for assassinations, even for business dealings, and the chambers are magically warded so tightly that even an unwanted roach can't find its way in. My cab pulled up to the Tower of the Wyrm. I got out, ignored the cries of the tormented. I entered. The mercy killers left me alone as I made my way down. There, I knocked 3 times, paused, knocked once, paused, and knocked 4 times. I heard the lock. The door opened. I was let in and looked at the mercy killer Wyrm. The man by the door nodded. The Tower of the Wyrm is filled with inhuman cries, and droves of well-armed, crisply saluting guards is the holding pen for troublemakers and petty thieves who have caught the attention of Our Lady. The tower stands not far from the prison. Some say the two were once part of the same structure before the terrible explosion destroyed their link. It is now run by the mercy killers. Those smart never mention this place by name. It's unlucky. Those who are jinxed, and the only way to shed that hex is to cross the harmonium palm with silver and gold, something that pains even the richest knights of the post. The tower is named for a faction symbol of the mercy killers, who constantly stand watch on its walls. The tower holds the Red Death mascot, a sort of winged snake that cagers call the Wyrm or the Dragon. Prissy primes say that it's really a wyvern, if anyone cares. The mascot serves more than just a decorative function. The Wyrm's venom induces delirium, making it easy for the mercy killer inquisitors to extract confessions from their charges, which in turn makes the duty of the governess, judges, easier, guarantees that the poor sods return to the mercy killer's hand. It's just another way to ensure that justice is carried out. And of course, some death sentences consist of simply feeding the offender to the Wyrm. Justice certainly cuts down the cost of the Wyrm's chow. Over countless generations, the strain of wyvern, known as the mercy killer Wyrm, has been out on the Great Ring. It has been bred with ferocity and for exquisite functionality of its venom, not for intelligence or hunting skills. Its wings are able to flap and carry the beast aloft for a mere minute or two before the weight brings it back to the ground. The Wyrm's venom is valued commodity, since it is the primary ingredient in the Cager version of Potion of Truth, which functions just like the Ring of Truth. Berks forced to drink the potion, a simple matter of pinching their nostrils shut while pouring it into their mouth. Anyone doesn't swallow drowns, will be affected for 1 to 6 turns. The Mercy Killers considered this more than humane than the alternatives. Torok's cloak billowed in the breeze as he ascended the grand marble staircase that led to the high houses of the Ladies' Ward. The opulent structures stood tall against the backdrops of Sigil's cloudy sky. Torok approached the entrance of House Delmira, where Shamishka, the Marauder, messaged him to meet. He entered through the servants' quarters without trouble and made his way to the cellar. Shamishka, a Yugoloth, reclined on a chair of adorned gleaming gems.
To gain entry to the portals you need, without the lady noticing, will cost you.
I know. How much?
25 souls.
Done by midnight tonight.
Souls first.
Not surprisingly, the buildings in this ward reflect the power and wealth of their owners. The greatest of the palaces are called the High Houses, and each of them has a name and history longer than any of the lords who ever dwelt within. A few of the High Houses are known to every Cager: the Grim, dominating prison, the dour and humorless Barracks, and the regal and imposing city court. Most other palaces, held privately, lie in the noble district. For all its majesty, the Ladies' Ward is still cold and lifeless. It's the quietest and most orderly place in the city, because only a leatherhead would make trouble in an area that's home to both the Harmonium and the Mercy Killers. The regular hurly-burly of the street life is missing, as too many folks are afraid of the hard heads and the Red Death, and for good reason. That suits the residents just fine, and the rich haven't ever been fond of the poor camping on their doorstep. The tapestry of life in the ward is actually much more vibrant than it seems, but it's carefully hidden behind iron-gated walls and discreet facades. Most of the Bloods who come here merely seek diversion, gambling, intrigue, a distracting but passionate affair with an inappropriate someone, the rebellions of the rich. Beneath that, the true players struggle for every advantage in their treachery, blackmail, forgery, necromancy, even forbidden and arcane rituals for the benefit of the dark powers. If a cutter finds his way inside, there's great costume balls where the rivals circle each other, where grand plots are hatched over lavish dinners, and where secret affairs are hidden far from sight. But the price of knowing the dark of high-ups is that one can always learn too much and be cast from the spire to fall forever. Torok's boots echoed through the dimly lit corridors of the Armory as he navigated his way through the maze of weapons and armors that lined the walls. The commander, a stern figure, clad in black armor, waited for Torok in the dimly lit chamber at the heart of the Armory. Behind him, iron-barred cells that housed prisoners. The Doomsguard commander nodded at Torok. "I have the prisoners you have requested," the older man said. "Perfect. This is the other half of the deal then," Torok said as he dropped 2 leather satchels on the table with a loud thud. Home to the Doomguard, this headquarters is in the seediest part of the ward. In fact, some folks argue it's really part of the grimy lower ward. Like most of the other buildings in the Ladies' Ward, it's huge and dominating. All the windows are covered with stone grates, and razorvine covers the lower walls. The single entrance, over which looms a gigantic sculpture of the faction symbol, makes it clear that the Doomguards got the weapons, and they intend to keep them. However, some of the shops in the neighborhood specialize in custom-made weaponry that a Blood can drop a lot of jink on, if she knows the right words to get her into the back room. The streets around the Armory are quiet. That stillness hides a lot of sinister activity. So close to the lower ward, this area's toehold of thieves and rogues seeking entrance to the Ladies' Ward. It's also a popular area for the wealthy who wish to mingle with the lower class, and for mercenaries and assassins to meet their employers. Torok's journey through the bustling streets of Sigil took an unexpected turn as he approached the city barracks, a bastion of security in the heart of the city, surrounded by towering walls and guarded by the vigilant Harmoniums. Torok entered Traysons Forge. He nodded to Tarholt and looked at Cole Chewer, who was bellowing into the forge. He placed down a key. "You think you can get this done by 4? Traybon nodded. "You got it, Torok." Torok slid 3 platinum onto the counter. "You're a good man, Traybon, just like your grandfather and father." Torok turned and left. Located at the opposite end of the ward from the Armory, the city barracks with its surrounding quarter is a restful place, much quieter than the seething chaos of the other wards. It's easy to know when a body's getting closer to the barracks, compared to the teeming chaos that most of Sigil. The streets near the barracks are serene, even empty. Lone passengers stride steadily toward their goals, and only a polite noise wafts from the doorways of the sparsely placed taverns and inns. And there's a peaceful air in this section that's found nowhere else in the city. That peace is punctuated by an imposing presence of crushing granite. The city barracks, outside of the rectangular buildings, looks dull, heavy, and impenetrable, with a single guarded entrance opening onto the street. 4 sentries stand before the arched doorway at all times, ready to challenge visitors. There's not all that much to see in the barracks, but the guards are members of the Harmonium, and the city barracks is their headquarters. So not just any Burke can walk up, enlist, and take a tour. The hardheads like to keep the street traffic minimal. They don't trust crowds. After all, crowds always go to the extremes, and what looks like an orderly mass one minute is a seething mob the next. Nothing annoys the hardhead more than having to put down a riot. From the street, the barracks is just immensely long, low 2-story building with a roof of gray slate. Built in 4 identical sections, the barracks forms a quadrangle around an immense parade ground. Its sheer size gives the impression of strength, but lack of spikes, gargoyles, and other ornamentation keeps it faceless, unable to inspire deep terror. The Harmonium considers that a good thing. Hardheads want to make the converts and want to be well-liked, but they don't want to give their patrol the same appearance. Most watchmen will use force to make people like them and foster belief in the struggle against chaos and crime. In fact, pressing members into the faction isn't unheard of. That is, literally taking bashers off the street and into the barracks, where they're broken, trained, reformed, and members of the Harmonium machine. Sure, impressment's a desperate tactic, but if Harmonium numbers drop too low, and the riots or fiends threaten order in the city, the faction does what it does to restore order. Given the hardheads' attitude, it's no surprise the streets are empty when compared to the rest of the empty lady wards. Very few businesses strive in the nearby districts, mainly because the merchant who doesn't conform to the Harmonium standard gets scragged fast. Sure, the governors released the poor Burke after a while, but who wants to go through all that all the time? Taverns and inns in the area are all closely follow the Harmonium official line. Every barkeep gives full measure. Menus don't lie, customers always leave a tip, and the businesses obey the 10 o'clock curfew. Doormen keep out obvious minions of chaos, and entertainment Harmonium bars will put a Burke to sleep right quick. Only certain songs, plays, and jokes have the approval of the Harmonium censors or will allow, and they're stale before a Burke's heard them even once. Oddly enough, despite all the armor in the Harmonium patrols wear out, the only armor is at the end of the quarter, near the Armory. Rumors say the Harmonium dwarfs being recruited and even paid to set up shop closer to the barracks. Harmonium's district around the barracks is home to a charter Harmonium butcher, a greengrocer, a tinker who sharpens larger blades more often than the smaller ones, a farrier, a tailor, and a blacksmith. All are good workers who deliver on time and at a cost agreed on. There's many cutters who'll put up with a horde of regulations if they can get Harmonium's consistently solid work. Traysons Forge, located in a side street near the city court, downward from the noble district. This smoke-spewing smithy produces fine, non-magical armor. The ancient Traven specializes in highly ornamental plate mail, suitable for triumphs, parade, and battle. All work is done to order and costs between 5 times to 1,000 times the normal price, depending on the workmanship. Many of his customers are members of the Harmonium, though orders also come from paladins of Mount Celestia, especially the Order of the Plains Militant. Traven is fully 471 years old, but he has never refused an order. He knows without a doubt that he'll die before he finishes the work, but he also knows middle son and daughter will carry on the family work. This comforts him, and he looks forward to his dour dwarf's ways and the dying at the forge, in the forge he carried with him from Kryn. He'll tell all his customers about his personal death wish. His sons and daughters find this embarrassing. Traysons assisted in his work by his middle son, Trayson, a 312-year-old great-grandson, Tarholtson, a 138-year-old, and a young adopted ogre named Cold Chewer. Cold Chewer works the bellows tirelessly and sings, or more precisely bellows, along to the dwarven work chants in rather good dwarvish. One might say he bellows at the bellows. Ha! Tiefling and fiend customers frighten Cold Chewer, and when they come into the smithy, he tends to hide in the back until they leave. The dwarves find this oddly endearing and amusing. Traysons' grandson, Tarhold, 343-year-old, no longer works the forge. Instead, he wanders between Sigil and the Dwarven Mountain and the Outlands, seeking customers, taking orders, and secretly searching for a place where his grandfather might retire quietly. The ogre, with the family since he was orphaned at 2, is a subject of an experiment of the Tarholds. The hypothesis is that the ogre raised in the proper dwarven fashion can be reformed. So far, Cold Chewer hasn't killed anyone. The Traysons clan, carrying the clan anvil, came to Sigil from Kryn about 120 years ago as part of a small exodus of dwarves to the Outer Plains. Trayson's got no plans to ever go back. Although his children are all curious to see the homeland again, Trayson keeps telling them an earthquake destroyed their family diggings, but none of them believed him. It was getting dark, and all his plans came to this. He opened the door, went down 88 steps, and entered this large chamber called the Storm Hall. People were already drunk and having a good time. He had nothing to do with this. He walked through the crowd to the other side of the hall, kept going to the 12 Factal halls, and kept going till he reached past the foundation stones. Torok's torch flickered, plaques in a language he'd never heard of, Catacombs of some long-forgotten nobility or warriors. He followed the path down, darkness around him, until he got to a locked door, pulled out the key, gave it a kiss, and opened it up. It clicked. It clicked! The door groaned on its rusted hinges. A musty smell came from within. The door opened wider, and he entered. His torchlight illuminated 12 2-foot-tall statues. The door slammed shut behind him, and his torch flickered out. The Catacombs and the 12 Factals. Persistent rumors claim that the door into the realm of the Devos exists somewhere within the Catacombs, what the dwarves of the Outlands call the doorway into the mountain. The rumor is a popular topic of conversation at the 12 Factals, a restaurant and tavern underneath the city streets, near Dawsey Street. The entrance leads down 88 steps from a dirty, swine-infested courtyard into an arched, vaulted chamber called the Storm Hall. After the loud and blustery singing, yelling, and boasting, the drunk usually wrestle there. A few stairs lead up from there to the kitchen, but most patrons go deeper into the catacombs, past the foundation stone that marks where the 12 Factals met to beg the lady for her support against the expansionists almost 1,000 years ago. The messenger they chose by a lot must have done the job, because Timlin's maze came soon thereafter. The very deepest and largest of the 12 Factal chambers is the echoing field of benches called the Deep Hall. Beyond that lies the 12 Factals Hall, where the Factals of the time are preserved in 12 small stone statues, each no more than 2 feet high. Many storerooms lead out from the Deep Hall and the 12 Factals Hall, and other passages are said to lie beyond the warded doorways of the storerooms. Once in a while, a mob of drunken revelers will insist on seizing torches and going exploring. When the argument is made at knife point, the barkeeps always agree that it is a good idea. Most of these groups are eventually rescued when their torches burn out and they begin screaming in panic, but a few are said to have vanished without a trace into the deep passageways. Ladies' Ward provides an area of politics, great antagonists, and a plethora of adventuring ideas. Have you visited this area before? Let me know in the comments below, and like and subscribe for more. Sorry about the audio difficulties at the beginning. Have a great day.